caught wife cheating day before anniversary. D-Day was 10 days ago on 1/29, and I'll never forget that day since it's also our anniversary the next day. I've been reading a lot of stuff on this sub since then. It's been reassuring to know I'm not alone. Now, I'm thinking that writing about what occurred will assist me. It will be lengthy since I believe that details matter, and I've been replaying it in my thoughts every day. This is our tale. I've been married to my wife for 26 years, and we've been together for 29 years. I'm 51 male and she's 49 female. 2 adult children, 24s and 22D. We met in college, dated, fell in love, married, and had what I thought was a wonderful marriage. We did a lot of things together, chatted all the time, communicated about difficult things. Both of us had good jobs that we both supported each other along the way. Amazing love life, maybe not as often as when we were younger, but just as passionately. She works in IT, and I run a small landscaping firm with 75 workers that I established after college. She's been working from home a lot since COVID, and we've been discussing my easing out of the day-to-day operations and her becoming part-time so we can spend more time together and travel now that the kids are settled. Looking back, I see no warning signs that I've read about. No strange messaging, no phone guarding, no outfit changes, no peculiar conduct, and no evenings out with coworkers. When she did go out, it was with friends and family, and I was constantly told the following day how I should have gone, but I wanted her to go out without me, and I like being alone in my store doing things. She was usually the first one home. To say I was taken aback would be an understatement. D-Day, I had planned a weekend at a beautiful bed and breakfast operated by some friends the week before. Our state is open. That weekend was a winter celebration. I leave work early to surprise her and tell her she has to pack a suitcase because we're going away for our anniversary. When I bring my pickup into the driveway, I see a weird automobile there. I didn't know why I knew right immediately, but I did. I'm hoping and praying that I'm mistaken, but my instinct tells me that I'm not. I sat there for a bit, unsure what to do. Leave and speak to her later, leave and pretend I didn't see anything. I'm trembling so much that I can't see properly. When I have to do something unpleasant at work, I usually remind myself, man up, get this over with. Suddenly, the shaking stops, and I feel quite peaceful, though I'm not sure how, since I'm a disaster on the inside. I sneak in via the back door, and instead of leaping on me, my black lab is resting there with a mournful look, as if he knows. I adore that puppy. He remains as I softly ascend the stairs. I can hear what's going on in our bedroom when I walk upstairs. When I open the door, I notice her boss on top of my wife. For a split second, I stand there and exclaim surprise. Did that follow? Would be amusing if it weren't so painful. He tries to get out of bed, but gets caught up in the covers. My wife is shouting OMG, 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 and attempting to cover up but is unable to do so, since he is still twisted up. He eventually gets out and begins hunting for his clothing, only to discover that they are on the opposite side of the bed. This just struck me right in the middle of where mine used to end up. I'm not sure why, but I beat him to them and grabbed them. My wife is weeping and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I go up to the door and stand there, and he's nude next to the bed. I lift the huge easy chair from the corner and drag it to the door, where I sit. He requests for his clothing, and I refuse, tossing him my wife's robe from the back door. He begins walking towards me. Even though I'm 51 years old, I'm in terrific condition. 6'3", 240 pounds. Years of working out at the gym and gardening have contributed to this. If you come any closer to me, it's not going to end good for either of us, I say. Why don't you just sit down because you'll be in the hospital and I'll be in prison. He sits down while his wife into the pillow. After an awkward moment, he says, what now? My response is that I have no notion. Wife is still weeping, but she sits up. Finally, I take out my phone and inform them that they will tell me everything as I record it. They both gaze at one another, and my wife replies, what do you mean everything? Everything, how it began, how long this has been going on, when, where, hotels, meals, etc. Everything. My wife claims that this is the only time I shop BS. You'd never be at ease enough to bring into our bed if this hadn't been going on for a while. If you lie to me again, I'm going to walk out the door and get a divorce lawyer. She begins to weep once again. So during the following 10-15 minutes, everything pours out, which has been going on for over 9 months. It started with him flirting with her, and so on, till he invited her to lunch and she agreed. They arrived at a hotel after a few beers. That night, she returned home to me as if nothing had occurred. She says it was killing her and she wanted to tell me but couldn't. I'll say it again. If it was killing you, it wouldn't have been so simple to keep going. They even went to a week-long business conference that I used to accompany her to. She informed me that the company's policy had changed and that wives were no longer permitted to attend. I put my phone aside, and there was even more stillness. Then an idea comes to me. I search his clothing for his phone and ask him for the password. He really hands it to me, so I begin searching through his phone. I see some images of a lady I believe is his wife and inquire about her name. Carol. She's lovely, but not as lovely as my Ashley, I tell him. More pictures of children, learning that he has 3, and ultimately a family photo of all of them. A lovely family, why did you throw it all away for a tumble with my wife? I exclaim as I hang up the phone. His response, what do you mean throw it all away? Me? Do you really believe Carol won't find out? How is she going to find out? He wondered. I'm going to call her right now, I said. He gets to his feet and exclaims, no, you can't. Please, don't do this to him. My wife cries, I blew it. I cannot do this to him. You've wrecked me, our family, our friends, our future, and crushed my heart, and you're concerned about him. I'm trembling again, trying not to weep in front of her, but I can't keep it together any longer. I slump back in my chair and begin weeping. She attempts to approach me, but I tell her to keep the hell away from me. After a bit, I calm myself and return my attention to his phone. Please don't, I implore you, he adds again. I swear to God, I'll tell her. That's correct, I say. He's betting with me not to as I look up her phone number and realize that FaceTime would be even better. Hi, sweet. Looks astonished and asks, who are you? Is my hubby okay? He is for the time being, but he will not be in a minute. I switch the TV to reveal him in my wife's robe standing there. I suppose you know him, I say. The place he's in is my bedroom, and the flowery robe he's wearing belonged to this lady. That's my wife and I got home early today to discover them having, I said, swinging the phone to catch her attempting to pull the blankets over her head. I honestly feel sad for her and remorse for how I handled the situation. She begins to weep, and he goes through the honey, I'm so sorry I can explain, it was only one-time routine. I advise her not to trust a word of what has been going on for over 9 months, and that I have spent the previous 15 minutes documenting all the facts they were ready to reveal. I tell her I'll text her my phone number, and she should provide me her email address, and I'll send her the video. I hand him the phone and hear her. Tell him that when he comes home, there will be a suitcase packed outside, and that if he attempts to enter the house, she will contact the police and hang up. I throw him his clothing, and he walks away after he's clothed. It's just me and my wife now. She looks at me and begins to weep, saying she is so sorry and never intended to harm me, and asking if I can forgive her since it didn't mean anything. All the usual BS from cheats. I look at her and urge her to collect her belongings and get the hell out of my home. I walk downstairs to get a drink. When she gets downstairs, I'm sitting on the sofa. She moves towards me, and I tell her to halt. She asks if we can speak about it, and I tell her that maybe, just maybe, but not just now. I tell her it's going to be difficult not to seek for a divorce lawyer, and she bursts into tears again. When she stares at me, I know she's about to say I love you. Don't you dare say that right now because I don't think I'll ever believe it again, I reply. She again as she turns and goes out the door. When I see her weeping as she walks out the door, my whole existence departing, I collapse and hysterically on the floor. I'm not sure how long it takes, but I eventually sit down, still weeping, and contact my best buddy. I attempt to talk, but I find myself weeping again and unable to get the words out. He inquires as to what is wrong, but I am unable to respond. He asks if I'm at home, and I kind of mumble yes, and he says he'll be right there. He arrives at my place 30 minutes later, and I'm still weeping. I hand him my phone with the video playing, and he begins to watch. I can't stand hearing that anymore, so I'm going to buy us each a drink. He walks into the kitchen, grabs my drink, and drops both of them, saying, "This isn't going to help you." Tells me I can't remain here alone tonight, and goes upstairs to prepare a suitcase. When I go downstairs, he has my lab on a leash, and we walk to his home. That was 10 days ago, and I'm still feeling like a jerk. I apologize for the length of this post. Thank you for sticking with me this far. I'll attempt to provide an update later. First update. This isn't really an update, but rather a continuation of the narrative of D-Day and the days that followed. To all of you who have remarked on how wonderful my buddy is, his name is Dan, and I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not sure what I would have done without him. Because we've known each other for so long, it seems to reason that our families would be close. Our children are buddies, and we used to go camping as a family when they were younger. His wife, Terry, and I had become good friends through the years. This is important to understand because of what follows. I'm silent as we drive to his house, and Dan is growing irritated. When we get at his house, he goes inside and asks Terry, "Did you know?" "Know what?" she says. "Did you know?" he says again, raising his voice. I grab him and tell him it's not his fault. It's not her fault. He realizes he's made a mistake and apologizes to Terry. Terry is now very perplexed. I hand him my phone and tell him to show her. I walk my dog outside because I don't want to hear it again. Terry goes outside, weeping, and gives me a massive embrace that seems like it lasts forever. She takes my hand in hers and leads me inside. The three of us spend the next hour or so talking, sobbing, and talking some more. My phone has been blowing up the whole time, you guessed it, my wife. I disregard phone calls and erase messages that I haven't read. My son finally calls. He's curious about what's going on. Mom is at his and his wife's apartment, claiming that I evicted her from the home. Did she tell you why? I said. No, he replied. Give her the phone. You need to tell him why, or I'll email him the video, I say as I hang up the phone. I shift from BS to protective father, assuring him that everything will be okay and that this is not his fault. He calms down and asks whether I'm okay, to which I respond, of course not, and begin weeping again. He eventually informs me that Mom will spend the night and then hangs up the phone. Almost quickly, my phone rings again, and it's my daughter on the other end. I forgot I had asked her to look after our dog while we were away for the weekend. She's curious about Cooper, my lab. I tell her that something has occurred and that we will not be leaving, but that she is welcome to remain at the house since neither of us will be returning home tonight. What do you mean, neither of you? Says the daughter. Where have you gone? I'm at Dan and Terry's and your mother is at your brother's house. Dad, please tell me what's going on. I can't right now, but I'll stop by the house tomorrow and we'll discuss. She continues pressing that I tell her, and I keep refusing. She eventually hangs up. I know where the next call is going, so I contact my son and warn him to anticipate a call. I then phone my wife and ask whether she wants to inform our daughter or if I should. Her only answer is to weep some more. I get off the phone. A knock on the door comes 30 minutes later. Dan answers the phone and lets my daughter in. She sees me and notices that I've been sobbing, so she rushes up to me, embraces me, and we both start crying, though she has no idea why. After she has calmed down and we have both stopped sobbing, I phone my wife back and tell her that our daughter is with me, and I ask her again whether she wants to tell her or if I should. My kid asks, Mom, tell me what, since the phone is on speaker. Only weeping on the other end this time. So I respond, I suppose I will, and hang up the phone. Without going into specifics, I explain that I discovered out that her mother has been cheating on me and having an affair for 9 months. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. I was brought to my knees by the pain on my darling girl's face. She's trembling and unable to weep. I'm crying on the floor and unable to move. I'm sorry if I let her down. I couldn't even move when she needed me the most. Terry runs over, weeping, and embraces her, assuring her that everything will be okay. Dan is having a good time. As I have said, close family. She eventually gives out this agonizing shriek that I will never forget, even if I live to be 100. I eventually get up and go over to embrace them both. Finally, we all sit down. No one can think of anything to say. I inquire about my daughter's well-being. She looks at me and says, Dad, don't worry about me, I'll be okay. I managed to yes, I managed to yay, I managed to yay. I managed to yay. She asks if she may bring Cooper to the home, and if her fiancé Tim can remain. Without a doubt. I'm relieved she won't be alone. Terry just walks away, stating I can't believe she did this, calling her every name in the book. She relaxes and takes her phone, stating she's going to call Mom and gazing at me as if expecting me to say no. I advise her to go ahead, but to put it on speaker. So she calls it, exchanging pleasantries and so forth. Finally, she informs her that Mike, that's me, phoned Dan weeping after she left the home, and that I'm going to remain there. Terry is well versed in many aspects of life. More sobbing ensues. Terry just unloads. What were you thinking? Scream at her. You couldn't possibly be serious. Why didn't you come speak to me before starting down this path? Why didn't you ask Mike if anything was missing? You know how considerate he is. Do you realize how many people you've harmed? Darlene, your daughter has just departed. I can't even begin to describe her expression when Mike informed her. Dan and I will never look at you the same way again. How could you be so self-centered? Just more sobbing on the other line, expressing how sorry she is over and again. Terry does not hang up, and I continue to listen to her. After about a minute, I ask Terry for the phone. Ashley, no answer. I inquire once, again. Ashley, she finally responds, "Yay, darling." To which I respond, "You can't call me that ever again." More sobbing. Me, I'm simply curious as to what you're really sorry about. Would you have understood how terrible this was if I hadn't come home early? Or would you have your employer after we came back from the trip? More sobbing. You're not sorry for all of the individuals you've harmed, including your boss's family. You're only sad you were discovered. I get off the phone. Dan, Terry, and I continue to converse for a few minutes more until the phone blows up again. I eventually attempt to sleep, but am unable to do so. In the morning, I ask Dan to drive me home, embrace Terry, and tell her how much she and Dan mean to me. I inform Dan that I'm heading to my cabin to spend some time there. He thinks it's an excellent concept. As we drive, I see that while my phone was exploding, there was one message from the boss's wife stating, "Thank you for alerting me and sending me her email." I give her the video and tell her that if she needs to vent, she may phone me. It will be beneficial to both of us. I pack gently so as not to disturb Darlene and Tim. I grab 2 of my .22 rifles as I load the vehicle. Dan asks what I'm doing, and I tell him I'm doing some shooting up there. He responds, "Not this time," and I'm away. So Cooper hops in and I'm off. When I arrive there in around 2.5 hours, I open it up and light a fire in the fireplace. I take Cooper for a stroll in the woods, which helps a little but not a lot. When my son calls to check on me, I tell him where I am. If his mother wants to remain at the home, she may do so, but she must be gone when I return. "Okay," he says. Cooper collapses in front of the fireplace after our stroll, and I go outside to split some firewood. Excellent exercise and treatment. With each swing of the axe, I alternate between seeing my wife's and her boss's faces. Stay over the weekend, Sunday, and Monday. I'll start making phone calls on Monday. First, I call my workplace to let them know I'd be out of the office for a bit, but could be contacted if anything came up. Next, I utilize an attorney if an issue arises with the corporation that necessitates legal counsel. He suggests a divorce attorney. I called her and scheduled a meeting for Thursday. Our joint accounts were then frozen by our bank. Credit cards are being canceled, and new cards are being issued. While being alone in the woods offered me some clarity about my future steps, I'm still shivering, wondering whether I'm going to follow through with this or attempt to save our marriage. When I come home, I go to this sub and start reading other people's stories. It helps, but just little. I go into the office once a week to speak with my human resources manager. We have a tight work connection that is going to become more personal. I tell her everything and seek her advice on how to inform their firm. She advises me to consult with my attorney before taking any action. She inquired whether I was going to investigate IC. She suggests someone and also advises me to visit my doctor for an STD check. I contact both and schedule appointments. On Thursday, I'll visit my new lawyer. Display the video to her. This time, I'm genuinely listening. She begins to shake her head and asks, "Why do people do dumb stuff like this?" She turns out to have a zero tolerance for cheats. Her spouse cheated on her and subjected her to hell. So much so that she changed careers and became a divorce lawyer. She tells me that everything would be okay, and I agree to sign a contract with her. When I inquire about informing my wife's and boss's HR, he suggests we should wait. Meanwhile, my wife and I have traveled to North Carolina. She's returned to our boys. At the very least, she was aware that I needed space and was not there when I returned home. I'm sleeping on the sofa because I can't bear the thought of going into our bedroom. When I need clothing, I grab as many as I can so I don't have to go in there more than necessary. Thank you for sticking with me this far. It took me an eternity to write this. For a few hours, I was in tears about something involving my kid. Update 2. Have emotions changed or become more prevalent? I have a question for any other BS out there. You notice that you're experiencing stronger emotional responses to things that have nothing to do with WS and what's going on. At the gym this morning, I heard Chris Stapleton's song, Maggie's Song. Look it up if you haven't already. It's about his dog's life. Near the conclusion, there's a sentence that says, "I've never known a finer dog and I assume I never will." My first black lab has been gone for a time, but I had two since then. The one I presently have was a big assistance on D-Day and in the days after. Of course, I thought about the first one, but always in a good manner, wondering of silly things he'd do, or his first pheasant, or playing in the snow. With the kids, I still refer to him as the finest dog in dog history. Today was a different story. It was a terrible sensation, and I miss that guy. I've become emotional about things I never would have been before. So, are there any other BS who have had this happen to them? So, as RS and I inch closer to reconciliation, I reached a minor personal milestone today. It wasn't anything major, but it struck me hard when it occurred. I went to get a new fishing license today. The shop clerk inquired whether I needed another husband and marriage license. It had been 16 weeks since D-Day. I wouldn't have considered it 2 months ago. I didn't give it a second thought today. I just nodded my head yes. I know it's corny, but I'll take it.